bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place.
Ready?
This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go.
And good morning, Birds fans. How are you on this fine Tuesday morning? You got your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald, here to hang with you today to talk about the 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, we're going to talk about a bunch of things over the course of the next 2 hours. But remember, always come back to 10-1, whether the Eagles have played a tough enough schedule.
10-1.
They have with the team and the other teams around the National Football League, either playing well or playing. Bottom line is Philadelphia Eagles, the only 10-1 team in the National Football League. Remember, it always does come back to that. Quick aside, Johnny Mac, before we get this going, because I do want to put this on a table with the Birds 365 guys, because I did elsewhere. I did a couple of fill-in shows. We were off here. Thanks very much to the Krause clan for allowing us the holidays, Thursday and Friday, a good meal for both John and myself, and some extra time to be able to make some extra money working elsewhere for yours truly. So I did a couple of CBS Sports Radio shows. So when you're on during the day on CBS Sports Radio, you have to write CBS Sports Minutes, which air in the other stations around the country. Odyssey has umpteen sports radio stations all across the country, including WIP being one of them. And you have to write a 30-second commentary. They tie it to a commercial, and they air it across the entire country on the other sports outlets. And one I did this week when filling in for Bill Ryder was the fact that we live in a power rankings NFL world.
I don't like that hand
up, guilty
I don't
as
like
charged.
it.
I know you don't like them. I don't really like them either, because I think that anyone who doesn't have the Philadelphia Eagles number one is kidding themselves and or making a bad mistake. And yes, I let them get under my skin too much, and shame on me. I shouldn't. But the power rankings, people get overly excised about them, and I point the finger at myself. We don't need power ratings in the NFL. There's a very good reason for that. In college football, in the next couple of weeks, a group will subjectively select what 4 teams are going to play for a national championship. And that's the way they have to do it. It's better than the way they used to have it with the polls. I appreciate the playoff committee's makeup and the people that are in charge of that, but it's still subjective. The NFL doesn't have that. They've got this great things called the standings. And even within the standings, they've got very defined tiebreakers that you know what you have to achieve to be able to make the postseason. So what Jody McDonald thinks, or John McMullen thinks, or Connor Orr thinks, or anybody from ESPN or The Ringer or CBS, whatever, think is nice and it's fun and we'll have fun talking about it and debating it, it means squatta. The only thing that matters is the standings. And that's why I say that, because remember, always come back to, and the Philadelphia Eagles are 10-1. Anything else we break down today and talk about the special teams and injuries and everything else is all part of it. But the bottom line still is that the Eagles are 10-1. And John, I look at the rest of their schedule. This team is winning a minimum of 14 games. Do you think they can actually lose 3 out of their last 6?
Yes, but only if they decide. Only if they have things wrapped up and decide to rest late in the season.
Do you think they have? Do you think with 2 games to go, they'll have everything wrapped up?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, if you think about Christmas Eve would be the one game. If Dallas can somehow get close enough to make that meaningful, that's the only way. Probably 17 and 18, game 17, week 17 and 18 mean anything, to be honest. So it's unlikely, but if they're playing the junior varsity, yeah, they might get an extra loss. So I'm not even concerned about that. The actual number, what you pointed out, yeah, they've been the best team in football. They're 10-1. They're only the only 10-1 team, and they have the inside pole position to get to the finish line with the number 1 seed, which is the goal. And it's more important than ever. It's always important, but ever since they shifted the extra playoff team, and now you only have 1 bye instead of 2, getting that first seed is more meaningful than ever.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And they're in a position to do it. So how they do it is not really relevant, just as long as they do it. And to me, if you get by Christmas Eve and you're in that number 1 seed, it's probably over. And then you can start talking about rest, and we'll have all those discussions, rest versus rust, and how do you keep guys at an optimal level, because you're going to have the extra week, and we're going to have all those conversations. But those conversations are good to have, Jody. That means you're really, really good.
Exactly. Now, but here's the thing. If they put it away by Christmas Eve, that means they probably won that game against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So even if they go the JV route for games 16 and 17, week 17 and 18, you think that they'll have lost some game before that? Either the Titans this week or the Giants the week
I could
after?
see them losing. Yeah, I could see them losing this game. I could see them losing a game. I can't see them losing to the Giants. Now, division games.
And by the way, and I apologize for interrupting. And man, you were more right about this than I was. I'm admitting defeat on this one. Week 17 is the Saints. And you and I split on the Saints this year. I thought the Saints could be competitive. I put too much hope in Jameis Winston actually returning to form. I thought the Saints could actually be a playoff contender for a wild card. And between you and I, as bad as they are, and they're bad, they're still an actual playoff contender, because that division stinks on ice, the NFC South, but they could be eliminated by that point. You think the Saints are going to bring anything in here to Philadelphia in week 17? I think Eagles JV could beat them.
That's possible. I mean, you bring up Jameis Winston. I mean, one of the reasons I didn't believe in the Saints was the two biggest reasons were I don't believe in the head coach, and I don't believe in the quarterback. And I don't think you move on from a Hall of Fame quarterback and Drew Brees. It's been a couple years, but I'm talking about the impact it has on the organization, and a potential Hall of Fame coach in Sean Payton. And it's like, no issues here. I mean, you're going to have some issues, and they've had some issues. But one of the biggest issues is the quarterback, and the fact that even though I don't believe in Jameis Winston all that much, he's better than stinking Andy Dalton. And they have, I don't, just bad decision making, bad organization. And when you have bad organizations and bad decision making, and I think Sean Payton was the one steering the ship in the right direction all those years, not Mickey Loomis, and now he's off in his own devices. So yeah, they could beat him even with with the JB, but anytime you're playing the JB, you can also lose to anybody. So that's one of those things where, Gardner Minshew's a capable backup, but that means maybe he plays well one week, maybe he plays well, maybe he doesn't play as well the next week. And it's tough to rest for 2 games. I mean, are you really going to rest for 2 games?
Which
I don't know if you can do that
means
either.
3 weeks.
Yeah,
Because if
I mean,
you put
exactly.
away the best overall record, you got that buy in there too. So that you really want to take
Yeah,
your star players off
that's
the field for 3 consecutive weeks.
that's probably too much. So, I mean, the number, they're going to get to the number. I'm not concerned about the number, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm really not. To me, this is a game that's upcoming. This is a game. This is a losable game. Tennessee. What does Tennessee do well? In theory, that's what the Eagles don't do as well. So, when we always talk about styles make fights, this is a team stylistically that could give the Eagles trouble. And I'm talking about the Tennessee Titans, and they're probably not happy after losing again to Cincinnati at home. Very tight, close game, and that's how they usually play. That's how they have to play. And it's probably going to come down to the fourth quarter here, and it's probably going to be a tight game. Play this way, play that way, ships things. This is a tough game for the Eagles. But I got to tell you, if they get through Tennessee, you know me, I'm not a fan of the Giants. I think they've been doing it with mirrors. I give Brian Daboll a ton of credit. Chicago, I think, is in ship down mode. I think they're really, going to be very cautious with Justin Fields, and he's all they have, basically. I don't know if they could beat him with Justin Fields, never mind without him. Obviously, you have Dallas and then New Orleans and the Giants again. Yeah, they're set up, man. But this is the game. This is the game to me. If they win this game, Jody, they're going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And it's an AFC game. It doesn't even matter that much in the standings, but
right.
This is the game to me, because this is the one team that they probably don't match up as well with as the other teams. Now, Dallas is a good football team. Eagles fans don't want to hear it. That's a good team. That's a good team. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're probably not going to win the NFC East. We'll see. We know Mike McCarthy's history in the playoffs. We know Dallas's history in the playoffs. But don't sleep on that Dallas team. That's a good team.
Agree on that. And I do want to expand on Dallas in a second. But first things first about the rest of the Eagles' schedule. Oh, when they play Chicago, Justin Fields will be questionable. They had him questionable this week. That was one of the few picks I got right because a buddy gave me some information on Saturday afternoon, I think it was, because at the time, Chicago was still saying Justin Fields was questionable, that he might start the game against the Jets. And I got a source in Chicago who told me there's no stinking way that Justin Fields sees the field on set. It's not happening, Jody. No, don't even listen to what the Bears are officially saying on the record. He's not playing. Within hours, they announced that they had elevated Nathan Peterson from their practice squad, and then they had the whole kerfuffle on Sunday. Supposedly, Trevor Siemian got hurt in warmups, so Peterson was going to start, and then shockingly, game starts, and Siemian's fine, and he's actually starting. So Chicago's trying to take a page out of Nick Sirianno's playbook of getting a competitive advantage by not giving out any information on their team and or blatantly lying about their team might be more accurate way to describe it. So when they get to the Chicago week, Justin Fields will be questionable. We won't officially know whether he's going to play or not until that game day. Speaking of the coach of the Eagles, he met with you guys yesterday via Zoom. I asked you yesterday if you thought we would have any new information on the Eagles' injuries. At least Nick Sirianni sung the praises of Jordan Davis, says he's rehabbing real hard. As far as putting a timeline on it, no chance, no shot. Wasn't happening, didn't happen, right?
No. And I'm to be honest, the biggest one to me is CJ Gardner-Johnson. Because Reed Blankenship played well. There's no question. I'm surprised how well he played, and I'm very happy that they gave him the opportunity. And a couple weeks ago, he kind of passed Kayvon Wallace in that dime package, which isn't very noticeable because the Eagles don't play it that much, only a couple snaps a game. But Kayvon had not been playing well when given his opportunities, and Reed did a really good job. I think, and matter of fact, I think Pro Football Focus graded him their best defender in that game, believe it or not. So he played really well in a really difficult spot. But that's one of those things where, maybe you persevere in game with an injury, but the longer you go, it becomes an issue. So that one is big to me because the Eagles don't have great depth there, with all due respect to what I said about Reed Blankenship. Now, with Jordan Davis, they went out and got Linval Joseph. They went out and got Ndamukong Suh. So I'm not as concerned about, I want to see him back, healthy, but you can take some time. And by the way, he looked fine when I saw him, was jogging, and so he looks close, but they've been able to get personnel to make up for his absence at least a little bit. With Dallas Goedert, and I add him and Avonte Maddox and now CJ Gardner-Johnson, it's not the same. It's not the case. And Nick praised Jack Stoll. Did a nice job. Everybody did a nice job in the running game, right? 363 yards. Everybody contributed to the running game. But I think I just talked about Reed. PFF had him as their worst offensive player, Jack Stoll. So there's a big drop-off from Dallas Goedert. We know that. There's a big drop-off from Avonte Maddox. We know that. It's a big drop-off with CJ Gardner-Johnson. Those, to me, are the bigger issues because the Eagles they haven't been able to go out and get somebody off the couch like Linval Joseph to play slot corner or safety or tight end. So
let me share with you a call that I got on WIP. I worked last night on WIP, and an Eagle fan wanted to know, Jody, is there a guy like Linval Joseph, like Ndamukong Suh, who's sitting at home, who can come in here and cure the Eagles' ills on special teams? That there is Mr. Special Team who's just sitting at home waiting to be picked up off the scrap heap, and you plug him in, and all of a sudden the Eagles' special teams issues will be over and done with. Then so you could probably guess I told the caller, please share that name with me. If you know who he is, I'll get McMullen to give it to his boy Michael Clay to lobby for Howie Roseman to make the call and get him in here. That guy doesn't exist. There isn't a special teams guru just waiting to jump into the Eagles and fix. No. Yesterday, Nick Sirianni did talk about it and said there are some things that they're considering, that maybe there's someone on the practice team that they could plug in. I think that's highly doubtable. I think if they had that person, they would have done it already. The maybe will elevate some of our starters, regular offense or defensive player, more likely defensive player, specifically on a coverage team, to fill a void, to grab a spot on a coverage team. You usually want to stay away from that because the last thing you want to do is get someone hurt. The Eagles are, despite the fact that you're talking about the injuries that they have and how they're trying to deal with it, they're still, I would say, one of the above average teams as far as games lost for players this year. They've either had some luck and or the way that they coach and use their players have worked for them. They have not been hurt nearly as bad as other teams in the NFL. So I think they'll probably stay away from that. Or am I wrong? Because it's bad, John. The Eagles special teams are on coverage. They're ranked dead last, 32nd out of 32 teams in the National Football League.
Yeah.
They're giving up the most yardage on returns. Will they do something as drastic as ask one of their regulars who haven't been playing special teams to jump into the mix for the last 6 games of the season?
Probably not, because the guys who would do it have already done it. Like Marcus Epps occasionally, is on special teams. Yeah.
And by the way, Epps would probably not be considered, because if you don't have Johnson, you don't want to risk Epps.
No,
you're already down a safety.
That's what I mean. I mean, Marcus plays every. Back in the day, Malcolm Jenkins was the guy. He'd play every snap, and he'd play on special teams, and he'd want to play on special teams, and he would demand to play on special teams. Marcus already does that. Marcus plays on special teams, not not like a core guy, but he plays on enough special teams, and that's been consistent. And he plays every snap on defense. I don't see that guy on the roster. That's the problem. The hope was, there's a lot of talk about Cameron Johnson in college, and he was a great special teams player. My names I always throw out are Chris Maragos and Brian Brayman, because I think there's something to players that are good on special teams and maybe don't help you as much as you'd like from a defensive or offensive perspective, in the case of those guys defensive, but they're so valuable that you carve out roster spots for them. The Eagles haven't done that. They haven't tried to find that player, or if they have tried to find that player, they haven't found that player, one or the other. And they're trying to make do, and it hasn't worked, Jody. I mean, as you mentioned, this is, and I was just looking at it, the Eagles remain 13 categories in PFF. Eagles are the number one team overall. Kansas City's number 2. We talk about power ranking. San Francisco's number 3. I think everything is settling where it should at the top. Special teams, you go over to that category. Washington is number 1. Tennessee, number 2. Those Houston Texans are number 3. 32, Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, dead last.
Well, you know what? Would you rather be 10-1 and 32, or 1-9-1 and number 3?
Here's the only caveat you have to put on it, John. And I'm sorry, Eagle fans, not going to want to hear this. Last year, NFC divisional game in Green Bay. Green Bay Packers lost. Why?
Yep.
Special teams.
Special teams.
So we can sit here and, like I was saying at the top of the show, the minimum games now that I think the Eagles are going to win is 14. And that's even with giving 1 up. I won't say 2, because if they get 2, then they might win their next 4 and just throw the JV out there for the next 2 and go, hey, we don't really care, which means they'd still win 14 games. And 14-3 is phenomenal. But if special teams jumps up and bites you in the butt in your first playoff game, we're all going to scream bloody murder in 2020 hindsight. How did they not fix special teams? So that's why I have to put it in a separate category and not say just, oh, the Eagles win anyway. No. They might, and they could continue to, but sometimes special teams just comes up and it bites you in the rear end at the worst possible times, which for the Eagles would be the playoffs. So I can't just cover it all up with, but the Eagles are 10-1.
No, what you can say is the Eagles have won. They have won despite poor special teams to this point. It might jump up at the worst time, as you mentioned, with Green Bay is the perfect example, because it just happened last season. Yep. They completely dominated that game for people that now it was a bad weather game. It was cold. It was all that. The offense didn't do. Other things have to work in concert as well, sort of like the Washington loss. Exactly. Everybody talks about they can't stop the running game, the time of possession. Everybody talked about that in Washington game, but a big part of the Washington game was also the fact that they play tempo as they usually do. They had too many 3-and-outs. So it was all in concert, and there are a bunch of other special
I'll
teams
give you
every week.
the biggest one of them all. They turned the ball over 4 times.
Yeah.
3 if you
Turnovers.
want to discount the Deshaun Watson backwards pass on the last play of the game that the ex-Eagle picked up and scored it. But they lost a turnover battle. They never lose the turnover battle. They got beat that week, giving the ball away 3 times.
Yeah, and that was the Quez Watkins play.
Dallas Goedert face mask.
Yeah,
Injury.
and the injury. Everything was working in concert to the point that when you get to that, then something crazy can happen and you can lose to a football game. That's sort of what happened to Green Bay in that game as well. They're still winning. They're still winning. They're winning. They're winning. They're winning, but they're not playing well. They should have put that team away long before that. And all of a sudden, here's the block punt, game over. You know, they're done. That's the kind of thing that scares you on a particular game day. And if anything's going to do it to the Eagles, it's going to be special teams. And Nick Sirianni is very big on, and I advocate this, Jody. And he's a CEO coach, and I think that's the way to do it. And I think more people should look at the way Nick does it, and they're going to start to replicate that when they look at head coaches. But he is a true CEO head coach. He gave up play calling. When something's not going well on the defensive side, he takes the blame from it. When something's not going wrong with the special teams, and he did that. But they got to fix this. They got to fix this because they stink at it. And it's something every week. It's been consistently bad every week, whether you go all the way back to week 2 and a blocked field goal, and, they end up winning that game easily. But boy, if they return that for a touchdown, if you remember that, all of a sudden they're right back in that game. You don't know what happens. That was kind of the start of it. And every week it's been something. Last week it was the kickoff return was absurd. The guy's taking it out from 8 yards deep. Every team in the NFL is like, we'll take the 25. We'll take the 25. We'll take the 25. Not against the Eagles. Take it out. And again, that's not Cordero Patterson. That's just some guy. And the Eagles made a big deal out of, wow, he's a good returner. Well, you look like a good returner. I don't know if he's doing that every week.
He was a good returner this past Sunday, yes.
Yeah.
How about prior to?
Yeah, exactly.
Setting the world on fire.
It's they've had some issues on special teams, and they've been so good it gets lost in the sauce a little bit. And so if you go through, and I'm looking at the numbers now, Jody, if you go through the 12 games, and I told you all those categories that PFF looks at the film, there have been 2 acceptable games on special teams. 2 acceptable games. Week 1, Detroit, and at Arizona. That's it. Everything else has been bad.
All right, then let me ask you this one, because if we take those games where they've actually been okay and point them and say, hey, here's when they could have been good, doesn't bode well for the rest of the season. Both of those games were indoors, and chances are Jake Elliott was able to boom them as best they can. Next game will actually be played in December, when just judging track record and history, it'll be even colder. You never know with Mother Nature, but the way it's worked for like thousands of years, the later we get in the calendar, the colder it gets. And Jake Elliott did kick one 7 yards deep into the end zone last week, and the Packers still brought it out because they feel that they could return it against the Eagles, and they're proven to be right. Can Jake Elliott get more distance on his kickoffs? I don't know where to look that up. Maybe you do, how many touchbacks he's had, or if there's even a greater demarcation as to how deep kicks actually go. I don't know where they would list that, or if they even have a category for that. But my off the top of the head feel is he's not bad at it. It's not like kicks are coming down at the 5, but there are some kickers in this league that ahead of time, as soon as they put the ball on the tee, why is he going to kick it through the back of the end zone? You're not even going to give them a choice, that they're not going to have the chance. Would that be something that the Eagles would consider? That I don't know. Maybe there is actually someone on the street who can kick it through the uprights off a tee from the 30-yard line. And you just say, do it, big guy. Just boot it out of there, and we'll start from the 25 every single time. How is Jake at the distance of his kickoffs, if you know?
He's what you described. He's okay. He's kind of middle of the road. He's not one of those guys who, can just boom it out of the back of the end zone at will. And there are guys like that. And, you never want to carry 2 kickers. If Evan Cepas could do it, it would be great. Just boom it to the back of the end zone as a kickoff. But he's not that guy as well. So, you can't carry 2 kickers on your game day roster just to kick it out of the end zone, unfortunately. When you're this good, though, you start thinking about it and saying, because you can get somebody. There are guys who can that's all they can do, but they have no ability to kick field goals. Their accuracy is terrible, but they can just boot it to where. Typically when you get it 7 yards deep, like I said, teams are giving up. They want to 25 at that point. They want to 25. So that's the scary. And again, I always bring up, I'm a Patterson guy. He's the best kickoff returner I've ever seen. Now, Cordero, because I was, let him go wherever against anybody. If it's 9 yards deep, he does it all the time. He'll go. And I have no problem with it. Everybody else, no, you shut it down. If it's even 3 yards deep, you take the 25. The fact that kid was taking it out from 7, 8 yards deep, that was the biggest indictment of this kickoff coverage you could ever have, because nobody does that, Jody. Nobody does that.
Except for Cordell Patterson. You're right. Yeah. He's the only one who does.
Yeah. And that to me was the biggest indictment. And I'm sure Nick Sirianni knows that. I'm sure that was a wake-up call, because they were probably like, are you kidding me? And they not only did it, they were successful.
Yeah, the special teams is something we'll continue to talk about unless they make a change or unless it gets significantly better. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Only one guest lined up today. That would be in hour number 2. Our buddy from NBC Sports Philadelphia, Dave Zangaro, going to jump in the fray. When we come back, Johnny Mac, I've got a question for you about the MVP status in the National Football League. I talked about this last night a little bit on WIP, crunch some numbers. I'm a little surprised by at least one betting outlet's odds on the MVP. I want to get your take on it and talk about the Philadelphia Eagles potentially having the most valuable player in the National Football League. He's Mac, I'm Mac. It's Mac and Mac right here on Birds 365.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted, revered,
appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate, honest,
and fair.
He is extremely dedicated,
motivated, and always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
You got your MAGA Mac guys here on Birds 365. That would be John McMullen, who's working on a little bit more sleep. Still not completely over the cold, but at least he got a little bit more sleep after Sunday Night Football. And yours truly, Jody McDonald. I didn't get much sleep last night because I was on the air on WIP till 2 o'clock. So we kind of reversed roles here today. Johnny Mac, I want to talk about the MVP in the National Football League. Quickie quiz for you, buddy. When was the last time a Philadelphia Eagle player won the MVP?
It's a good question. I'm not a big MVP. It's not an award I'm interested in, but I don't think anybody has that I can think of. Have they?
Here's the answer to the question. In 1960, when the Eagles won their championship, Norm Van Brocklin was named the league's most outstanding player. They started giving out an award in 1957. And in 57, 58, 59, and 60, they called it the most outstanding player in the National Football League. And Van Brocklin won it in 1960 when the Eagles won the championship. In 61, they changed the name of the award to Most Valuable Player. And since 1961, no Philadelphia Eagles player has ever won the MVP. So it's never happened. The answer to the question is never. Now, 60 was basically the MVP. They just had a different name for it. But if you're going to be to the end to be accurate, they're 0 for the MVP.
Yeah.
They've never won the MVP. And they got a legit shot this year with Jalen Hurts. I checked my BetParks app yesterday. And right now, Jalen Hurts is the second choice to Patrick Mahomes. But what jumped out at me was the amount of difference between the two. Mahomes right now in the MVP race is minus 150. And for those of you who don't wager, I'll give a quick explanation. That means you would have to put up $150 just to win 100. So he's less than even money to win the MVP, which means he is a heavy favorite at this point. Jalen Hurts is the second choice, and he's currently plus 333. So if you wanted to bet him, you could bet 100 and win $333, 3-1 with a little juice on top. You certainly can make the argument that Mahomes is the favorite as of right now. The head over heels, substantial favorite. Do you not look at the 2 seasons the two guys have had, John, and say it's pretty close between Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts? Because I surely do. And at least at the one betting outlet I checked, it's not close. It's Mahomes in a runaway. Do you see it that way?
I do, but I don't agree with it. Like, I know it's a runaway. I know he's going to win. I've been saying it on this show for a couple of weeks now.
Please explain why to our loyal streamers.
Because I know what the voters look for. And that's what they're looking for. And they're going to default to the whatever he's got, 30 touchdown passes.
So it's only 29, but he's close.
Yeah. That's what they default to. They're not going to look at the dual threat and the esoteric nature of the Eagles offense and the impact that Jalen Hurts has. So me personally, I think it's very close. Me personally, I think you could make a strong argument that Jalen Hurts is more important to the Eagles. And again, some of it comes down to definition. I always say this is not a run first offense, not a pass first offense. This is Jalen Hurts first offense with the Eagles. They do whatever they have to do to win a game. They toggle back and forth. It's really impressive. But I know what they look for. Our buddy Rob Motti handles the voting for the AP. I know what the voters look for, and they look for traditional numbers and traditional quarterback play and what people think of as traditional quarterback play. And that tilts more towards Mahomes, and it tilts more towards Mahomes in a pretty drastic degree. So, the fact that he's going to be second, and by the way, maybe the bigger argument here is your guy, Tua, because he seems to get overlooked, and he should be in the conversation as well.
Tua right now, the third choice at 6-1. So you got Mahomes at less than even money, Jalen at 3-1 plus, Tua at a flat 6-1. So I think they've got him in the right order. I think they just deserve to be more tightly bunched together right now.
Yeah, I agree. They should be. It should be closer, but it's not. It's a runaway, and Patrick is going to win it. And I wouldn't get too worked up about it because, as you mentioned, it's for the most part, it's now a quarterback award. There's a few times, we're just talking about MVPs. I remember looking back. Lawrence Taylor, I think, is the last defensive player to win it. And that's a while ago. And before Lawrence Taylor, you got to go back to Alan Page. So it's not a defensive award. Adrian Peterson's season, whatever that was, 2012-ish, 2011, 2012-ish, when he had the 2,000-yard season. That was amazing, and I believe he won the MVP. Even from that year, things have changed so drastically. It's become a quarterback award, and it is what it is. Lamar Jackson did win it, so I guess you never know. But as long as there's somebody having a year like Patrick Mahomes is having, yeah, he's gonna run away with it.
Here's the reason why it bothers me a little bit, John. And I think I brought this up with you yesterday, or maybe it was with Glenn on Sunday. Passer rating. You and I have had this discussion before. I admit that passer rating is a flawed way to rate the quarterbacks in the National Football League. But it's still the best way to rate the quarterback. There is no perfect way. We lean on our friends from Pro Football Focus all the time, and certainly they come up with certain rankings and ratings that leave me scratching my head. So I'm not even going to just buy into them, as you just have to use them as the Bible to decide everything. Sorry, I like you guys. I'll debate you guys from time to time. But passer rating is supposed to take the dual threat running quarterback, how many yards can you pile up while running it, and or touchdowns that you can pile up while running it. That'd be 8 for Jalen. And take that out of the mix. This is purely a passer rating. When you drop back and you cock and you let it go off the shoulder, that's what this is supposed to depict. Right now in the National Football League, the passer ratings are Tua Tagovailoa, number 1, 115.7. Geno Smith hanging in there at 107.9. Jalen Hurts third at 105.6. And Patrick Mahomes fourth at 105.3. So that's a passer rating. That doesn't add to the mix what Jalen Hurts brings to the Eagle offense and his ability to make plays with his legs and his abilities to score touchdowns via the ground. That's not enough to sway the voters, that there is a legit statistic out there that says Jalen Hurts is having just as good a passing season as Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. See, the problem with passer rating, and nobody should, and I'm not, and when I say nobody, there's some people who understand the formula, but the formula is very tilted towards interceptions. So if you have more interceptions, it's going to kill your passer rating. Jalen obviously has protected the football better than anybody. The 3 interceptions, whatever it is. He, by the way, even more impressive to me is his ball security as a runner, which is phenomenal considering how much he runs it. So, I mean, that part of it, it's not an insult to him, but the formula is what I'm trying to say is very skewed. So, when you look at somebody like Mahomes, and I don't even know how many interceptions he has.
He's got 8. Jalen has 3. Mahomes has 8.
Yeah, and there's and what was the numbers? 105 what to 105?
Oh, 105.6 to 105.3. It's very close, but
yeah,
Jalen is slightly ahead.
And if you knock that number and that formula down to 3, which you can't, he'd be way ahead. I mean, he'd be way ahead. And that's part of the limitations of. There's limitations to every number you can do. ESPN has their quarterback rating, which takes into effect the running attack. So, and that's why I applaud the voters who don't look at just numbers. And if you went with numbers, then it should be Tua, right? Yeah, I mean, if you just went with passing numbers, do I think if you ask me who the best quarterback is, I would say Patrick Mahomes. So I can't really argue with people who say, he's the MVP of the league. But Jalen Hurts deserves to be in the conversation. And that to me is amazing. And he is in the conversation. Is he going to win it? No. But it's pretty impressive to be number 2. And that's where he is right now. And he's playing at an MVP level. That to me is the only thing that matters. He's playing at an MVP level.
All right, let me paint a scenario. And I'm not predicting this. I'm not projecting this. I'm just suggesting it could happen. Let's say the Eagles win their next 4 games, including a win over Dallas on Christmas Eve, in which Jalen Hurts plays very well. I'm not even going to go 170 yards rushing like he had this week. I won't even go 5 touchdown pass game. No, he has a Jalen Hurts type game, and the Philadelphia Eagles go into Dallas, beat Dallas, and basically salt away home field advantage throughout with a 13-1 record, 14-1 record going into the last 2 games. And then Jalen Hurts is skimmed back, that he's not playing. What happens if the Chiefs go 3-3 in the last 6 weeks of the season, and Mahomes loses 4 games, and Jalen only loses 1 because the Eagles really do pull in the oars? They've kind of shown the ability and belief to do that. When in doubt, get your star players off the field to protect them, and I expect them to do the same at the end of this year. How much do wins and losses play into that? Now, the Chiefs could still, with 4 losses, be the number 1 seed in the AFC. But if the Eagles basically have 1 loss going into the last 2 weeks of the season, and Jalen Hurts' record is 14-1, is that enough to swing the voters?
Yeah, I think record's a big part of it. Probably shouldn't be. The old wins and loss are not a quarterback stat. I mean,
they are.
Well, to people, the coaches will tell you they're not, because, it's the ultimate team game, right? That's what they always say. And, quarterback gets more credit and coaches when a team wins than they probably deserve, and they get more blame, the old adage. And it's true. It's 100% true. There's a million ways you can win a football game. So it does matter, obviously. I mean, look, I think, and I give this argument all the time. I've had this, Nick Sirianni loves Phillip Rivers. And one of the ways we connected, I always thought Phillip Rivers was a better quarterback than Eli Manning, but he didn't win the Super Bowls. So nobody's talking about him as a potential Hall of Famer because he didn't win 2 Super Bowls. He was a bet for the game by game, year after year. If you just went game by game, who's better? Phillip Rivers is a better quarterback, and it's not even that close, to be honest. It's not even that close. But when you win, Jody, everything gets skewed. So, yeah, it means a lot. And if you're sitting there at 16-1, and all of a sudden, Kansas City's 12-5, that'll make a big difference. If they finish this out, and Kansas City falters, not consistently, but they're not dominant. Yeah, it matters.
And I'll give you another reason why it can and should matter. I just looked at Kansas City's finishing schedule. They're in Cincinnati this week, and Cincinnati got a pretty impressive win on the road against Tennessee this week, and maybe the Bengals are just hitting their Super Bowl stride as of right now. So that's a tough game. After that, their last 5 games, you ready for this, Johnny Mac? Broncos are a dumpster fire right now. Houston, ouch, got the worst record in the National Football League. Seattle, but they've got them at home, and Seattle will be fighting for a playoff spot. So that's a good game, but one that the Chiefs will surely be favored, maybe by as many as a touchdown. Denver again, and then finish out with the Josh McDaniels-led Raiders. So Kansas City's got a pretty easy finish out the season schedule. The only 2 real games on it are Cincinnati this week and Seattle. The other ones are divisional opponents that they've already the Raiders already beat. The Broncos, they could probably beat with a blindfold on and an arm tied behind their back. If the Chiefs do go 3-3 down the stretch, Patrick Mahomes shouldn't get the MVP. If they can't win 4 or 5 of those games with that finishing schedule I just rattled off for you, he's not the MVP of anything.
Well, there's a reason he's the prohibitive favorite, Jody, and schedule's part of it. It isn't going to be. He isn't going to fall off a cliff. He isn't going to lose a bunch of games. Kansas City's a good team. He's the best quarterback. He's probably going to finish the deal. Let's be honest. And that's why. Those people that set the odds, they're not dumb, Jody. They know what they're doing. He's a prohibitive favorite for a reason. And unfortunately for the Eagles, but really, that's probably the wrong word, because to have the number 2 MVP candidate on your team is pretty good. And if you go back to the start of the season, if anybody said Jalen Hurts is going to finish number 2 in the MVP voting to Patrick Mahomes, I would have laughed at them, Jody. I would have laughed in their face.
We all would have. And you know how big a Jalen Hurts fan and how much I was saying, you got to give this guy a chance. Those people that continued to tell us, and we had some right here on our stream on Bird Street 65. He's not accurate enough. He can never be a franchise quarterback because he's not accurate enough. And both you and I said it. You can work on that. That is a skill that absolutely can be improved. That if you put the time and effort in, that you can absolutely get better at it. Now, I expected him to get better. As much better as he did? No. Even a big Jalen Hurts fan like me couldn't have given you the numbers that he's actually put up. But that did annoy me during the offseason, Johnny Mac. People just didn't give him enough of a chance to improve his game, and he's improved it by leaps and bounds.
No, I always talk. One of my pet peeves is the draft and people's grand assertions about players. And I use the phrase "player development is real" all the time. All the time. Players get better. Players get worse. Players get stagnant. It goes in all 100 different directions. You don't just draft somebody and they show up and that's what you have. That is just the start of the process. And the good teams develop players. The good coaches develop players. The good staffs develop players. The Eagles have done a phenomenal job developing Jalen Hurts. They deserve credit. Jalen deserves a ton of credit. We talk about his work ethic. He's the one. For years he did one thing, and he was comfortable. And that's one of the hardest things to do, Jody. You get to the point where you're an NFL starting quarterback. Everything you've done in your life to that point has gotten you to that. And he changed, and he went out to see Tom House and Adam Day-Dew and all those guys in Southern California. And that's out of his comfort zone. And a lot of people won't do that. And he did it. So he deserves a ton of credit as well. But this mentality, and you'll hear it, and we'll do it leading up to the draft this year. We do it every year. And we'll have 100 different people on, and they'll all be making grand proclamations about 20, 21-year-old kids who haven't played a game in the NFL. This guy's this guy's that. He's never going to be this. He's never going to be that. And it happens every year. Forget about Jalen Hurts. TJ Edwards is, another guy I often bring up. TJ Edwards can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't. Well, all he does is freaking play football well. I know we didn't run well on one March day back when he was getting drafted. That doesn't define somebody for the rest of their life, but for a lot of people it does. It's weird.
It's ridiculous is what it is, if you ask me. All right. Let me make a bold prediction. Write this one down as a hot take, whatever you need to do. Or
by the way, Jody, I got to break in because little breaking news.
Okay.
From Tom Pelissero, NFL media. Eagle safety CJ Gardner-Johnson is out indefinitely with a lacerated kidney.
Yikes.
Lacerated kidney. Non-surgical. Testing is ongoing. Timetable still to be determined. It is not expected. That's the good news. Not expected to be a season-ending injury. Lacerated kidney. I immediately go back to Zach Ertz. Played in the playoffs. Came back with a lacerated kidney. By the way, that was the start of the issues with Zach Ertz and the Eagles. So he'll be back, but anytime you hear lacerated kidney, that's scary.
That is very scary. And if that's Pelissero's report, and he's pretty good at ferreting out that kind of information, even as a national guy getting local team info, it's probably pretty darn accurate, which the Eagles really keep tight to the vest. So good for Pelissero for being able to get that out. All right. Prediction for you. Lengthy prediction down the road. To check mark this one and hold me to it if it comes to fruition and or give me grief if it blows up. The championship game, championship weekend this year in the National Football League will be in the AFC. Tyreek Hill returning to Kansas City, where he made his name and did say that the most accurate quarterback he's ever played with is Tua Tagovailoa, not the MVP, Patrick Mahomes. Tyreek Hill going back to KC to take on the Chiefs for the AFC Championship. And in the NFC, Johnny Mac, much like in the AFC, going to be a former wide receiver
Jalen Reagor?
What's that?
Jalen Reagor?
That is incorrect. But a former wide receiver coming to Philadelphia as part of the team that is playing the Eagles for the championship of the NFC. Who would that receiver be?
Let's see. Dallas, San Francisco. Those are the two teams that I'm most concerned about. I mentioned Jalen Reagor. I'm not concerned with Minnesota or the Giants. I don't know. Who are you talking about? Who am I missing?
Do you know who's on the 49ers roster still?
On
injured reserve.
Has
not played a snap this year. Has not played a snap in the National Football League for the last 3 seasons, but is on San Francisco's roster.
You're not talking about Marquise Goodwin. He's on Seattle.
No.
I don't know where. No, I'm lost.
Do you know who's on San Francisco? And I didn't even realize. I just noticed it on their roster. Jordan Matthews.
Oh, wow. Jordan.
Is still on the 49ers roster on injured reserve. So he could be on the sideline for that game. Chance to come back to Philadelphia with the 49ers to take on the Eagles.
Elliot Shore-Parks would be very excited by that. Yeah, he's a big Jordan Matthews
guy. He's a big
guy.
Jordan Matthews guy.
Yeah, I'd go more Reagor than that. I think Rager's got a chance to start playing in Minnesota because their third receivers crap in the bed a little bit, so he might get an opportunity. And Marquise, he's actually made a play.
He's made a couple of plays for Seattle.
Yeah, those are the more relevant ex-Eagles receivers. Shockingly,
agreed. But I don't think Seattle's going to be here for the championship game. Sorry,
I don't think either. I don't think Minnesota is
Marquise Goodwin's fans. Minnesota better chance than Seattle in my book. But yeah, there's a reason that the Cowboys and the 49ers are right now the second and third choices in the NFC behind the 10-1. Always remember to come back to that, Eagle fans. The 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDowell. We'll come back. Dave Zangaro, NBC Sports Philly, is going to join us a little over 15 minutes from now. So keep it there on Birds 365.
Don't wait until after Thanksgiving for leftovers. It's the new leftover sales event at Jeff D'Ambrosio Destination Downingtown. Jeff must get rid of hundreds of new 2022 vehicles on the lot. Rams, Grand Cherokees, Wranglers. Jeff has them all for less. Jeff has reduced prices and payments to the lowest they've been all year. And Jeff knocks down high interest rates. Save thousands more than anywhere else. Plus, get more for any trade or lease return. You always win at Jeff's. Great selection, best price. Hurry in now. Jeff D'Ambrosio Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Black Friday sales event.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
At Salus University, our graduates are among the most highly trained in their profession because of our unique emphasis on research, interprofessional collaboration, and early clinical exposure. Learn more about our programs at salus.edu.
Johnny Mac and Jody Mac here with you on Birds 365, hour number 2 coming along, and Dave Zangaro, NBC Sports Philly, going to jump in with us coming up in less than 15 minutes. Oh, by the way, rooting interest this week for you Eagle fans out there. Certainly 1 o'clock, you'll all be tuned to the Birds and see if they can beat the Titans, which I want to get to something in just a minute, and then we'll carry it over. I want to ask Dave Zangaro about it as well. But in other action this weekend, there's a couple 4 o'clock games and a Sunday night game you want to pay close attention to. Yeah, I would suggest you start rooting against the Kansas City Chiefs. If you want to see your buddy, your boy, Jalen Hurts win an MVP. And oh, by the way, I watched the Kansas City game this week in the late window before the Eagles played on Sunday night. Mahomes didn't have a great game. He threw for 300 yards. He threw for 2 touchdowns. Kelsey got another one. And that boggles my mind. How Kelsey continues to get touchdowns on a week-in, week-out basis. He's not that fast, but yet he scored. And they're all not all just 4-yard touchdowns. They're 30-plus yard touchdowns. How do you not cover that guy? How do you not have someone on him every step of the field? It continues to amaze me. And I give him credit for that. Mahomes is good enough to get him the ball. It's a combination effort. It's not all Kelsey, but I don't know that Kelsey gets enough credit. He should be getting some MVP consideration. But I would be rooting against the Chiefs if you want to see your boy Jalen Hurts, or if you wagered on Jalen Hurts winning the MVP. But the 1 o'clock window, aside from the Eagles game, come with me, folks. Everybody jump onto that JETS, Jets bandwagon, because they're in Minnesota to take on the Vikings, which John may not believe in the Vikings. I have my reservations about the Vikings. They're the only team that are within 1 game of the Eagles as of right now. They're the only 2-loss team in the NFC. Eagles 1 loss, Vikings 2 losses, and everybody else has a minimum of 3 thereafter. Yeah, go ahead and root for the Jets this week. Jump on that Jet bandwagon. Mike White looked like the future of the New York Jets this week. He's taken over. He may never be unseated. He may be the Jets quarterback for the next decade. All right, maybe I'm gilding the lily a little bit here. But he did throw for. Here's another question for you, Johnny Mac. 2 unfair questions I've thrown at you this day. Mike White for the Jets last week threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes. Only 3 other Jets in the history of the franchise have done that twice in their career. Mike White has started 4 games, and he's already done it twice in his career. 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes in the same game. Who are the other 3 Jet quarterbacks who did it?
Well, I gotta throw Chad Pennington in there. No. I'm thinking of high volume throwers.
No, turn back the clock to their Hall of Fame quarterback.
Joe Namath.
Joe Willie's one.
Richard Todd.
Richard Todd, you got the tough one. You got the hard one. That's the hard one out of the group. Very good.
Yeah, he was somewhat high volume there for a while. I'm trying to think.
Skipping is the one who was infamously selected before Dan Marino.
Ken O'Brien.
Kenny O'Brien, who also came here and quarterback Philadelphia Eagles.
That was an easier one. Yeah, I should have got Ken O'Brien.
The Todd one is tricky. And Pennington, no. Vinny Testaverde, no. I was kind of surprised by that.
Oh, Vinny. Yeah, I would have got to Vinny eventually.
He was a high volume guy, but there's only now Mike White, only the 4th in the history of the Jets ever to do that. So feel free to jump on the Jets bandwagon with me this week, guys, because you want to see Minnesota.
By the way,
down.
here, if anybody wants a prop bet, I guarantee Mike White's over 300 yards passing against that pass defense. I guarantee it. Now, the thing about Minnesota, they turn it over a lot. They might intercept him 3 times. It might be one of those deals. But he will be going up and down the field against that pass defense. I guarantee that.
Yeah, Vikings pass D is not great. You and I can agree on that. All right, John, we're going to start to look ahead, even though we're only on Tuesday for the next Eagle game. Can they get their 11th win on the season against Tennessee coming in this week? Here's my concern, and it has to do with your boy. You know, I go there whenever I'm going to critique the defensive coordinator, who, again, let me say, I'm a fan of. I like him. I think he's done a damn good job since he got here. Those that want to run him out of town are ridiculous and ludicrous, but I'm not afraid to point out every once in a while when I disagree with something with the DC. And this is the Jonathan Gannon question this week. Cincinnati shut down Derrick Henry on Sunday. It was my incorrect pick. I thought it was the lock of the week. Tennessee getting points at home on a revenge week against Cincinnati.
Yeah, they get Cincinnati's got their number, man.
Beat fair and square. So I did some reading. I watched some of the game and then I did some reading afterwards. Apparently, they went to a specific defense to shut down Derrick Henry. That was what Cincinnati employed this past Sunday, with oftentimes 8 and occasionally 9 guys in the box against Tennessee, and just dared Ryan Tannehill to throw the football. They advertised ahead of time at the line of scrimmage, oh, we're going to stop the run. You want to try and run against this? Bring it. We're going to stop you. And they did. Jonathan Gannon never does that. He never sells out for the run. It's just not in his DNA. Supposedly, the Bengals put the blueprint out there as to how to beat the Tennessee Titans. Will Jonathan Gannon buy into that blueprint this week? All right, did we lose Johnny Mac? I'm not hearing Johnny Mac. All right, don't know. Did we lose Johnny? Let's see if John can read my lips. Are you hearing me, John? Oh, you're hearing me and I'm not hearing you. I don't know what the deal is here, Tone.
I muted that was my fault.
All
This
right,
is my
Johnny
cough.
Mac is back. Yeah.
This is my coughing. That's my fault.
No
Yeah, I got to do a better job with that. That's on me. I got to get better, just like Jonathan
Yeah,
Gannon.
you got it.
I'm trying to mute when I cough, but I've seen no evidence. Getting back to your original thought, I've seen no evidence he's going to do that. AJ Dillon is a perfect example of what can go wrong with, and he's not Derrick Henry. When you have these light boxes against these big, powerful backs, and boy, I don't think they're going to change their philosophy for 1 week and then try to go back. Do I agree with that? Not necessarily. I don't think Ryan Tannehill can do that much damage to you. I mean, you saw a big play from Treylon Burks. He's starting to come on a little bit, by the way. Really talented kid. I don't think they can hurt you that way. So I don't necessarily agree with this philosophy of always playing light boxes and limiting explosive plays that way. And oh, by the way, you gave up an explosive play anyway to Christian Watson. So, you also have to
Four plays of over 20 yards last week by the Eagles defense.
And you're also dealing with Reed Blankenship, and you're obviously Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, we know, with the lacerated kidneys, not going to be out there. Amonte's still not going to be back. So you're dealing with lesser players in the secondary. So the Eagles want to protect them. Strap it up, man. Derrick Henry's coming. It's goofy to me. This is probably the only team in football. Nah, I shouldn't say that. But there's a handful of teams. We just mentioned one of them, Minnesota, play the exact same way. There's a handful of teams are just not going to do it. And they're just not going to do it. And they don't believe in it. And the Eagles seem to be in that category. And I don't agree with it. So don't shoot the messenger. But I don't agree with it.
You don't agree, nor do I. And that's my biggest complaint about Gannon. Overall, I think he's a smart guy. I think he's got a good system in place against most teams. The Eagles rank where they rank in the key defensive statistical categories in the league, which is better than some of the critics of Jonathan Gannon would have you believe. They're good defense. But his complete inflexibility that our system, our philosophy shall never be questioned, shall never be tinkered with, that on a handful of plays over the course of a game, you can't actually vary your defense. Yeah, I got a problem with that. And that's my problem with Jonathan Gannon, that he so believes in his system. He says, all right, well, if you beat me on that given play. But over the course of the game, we're going to be better.
Now let me just say this.
You just adjust and make better plays. Nobody's asking you to change your philosophy or your system. We're just asking you to show a little flexibility within.
Now, let me say this. The flexibility is the 4-man versus the 5-man fronts. They might play more 5-man fronts because it's Derrick Henry, and it might work out. Now, the issue to me comes where, they don't play enough 5-man fronts and they go into this 4-man over front, which would, for a lack of a better term, where they're playing single high safety. Now, they're going to play not single high, cover two look, and then they spin off usually in the quarters coverage. That to me is the problem. If you see that, you're in trouble. If you see that too much, if Big Linball's out there and Sue's out there and they're playing the 5-man fronts, then they got a better chance. They got a better chance to at least hold up better against Derrick Henry. But these big 8, 9-man box, they're never going to do that. They're never going to do that. That's just my thought. And until they do it, I'm going to say they're never going to do it because I haven't seen it.
The evidence supports your stance and Jonathan Gannon's stance. But the evidence also supported that the Eagles can be run on, and you got a really good running back coming in this week who could make you pay some pretty big prices. Johnny McMullen and Jody McDonald, your Mac Bird 365 guys. We are scheduled to be joined by Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philly, their outstanding Eagle reporter. He's up next here on Birds 365.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted,
revered,
appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate, honest,
and fair.
He is extremely dedicated,
motivated, and always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
You got your MAGA Mag guys here on Birds 365, McMullen and McDonald, joined by one of the best Eagle reporters in the business. He does it for NBC Sports Philadelphia. Dave Zangaro jumps in with us here on Birds 365. Dave, how was your Thanksgiving before you had to go sit with McMullen on Sunday?
It was good. Yeah, no complaints. Yeah. Thanksgiving's always a fun holiday. So
yeah,
it was all good. My mom was sick, so she couldn't go.
I was sick, so except when you're sick. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was sick. She couldn't get the dinner, so I had to bring back plates from my cousin's house.
Yeah, that's a shame. Hope she's feeling better.
She is, thanks. Yeah.
Everything going around. Unfortunately, CJ Gardner-Johnson not feeling better. Lacerated kidney, according to Tom Pelissero from NFL Media. First thing I think of is Zach Ertz back in, what was that, 2019? And he made it back for the playoffs. In a lot of ways, that was I think the crux of sort of the disconnect with the organization, Zach Ertz, and playing through that injury. It sounds serious, but it's pretty good indication CJ's going to be back at some point, don't you think, Dave?
Yeah, and it is serious and like a real world.
Yes, I should. Yes, that was bad.
Lacerated kidney. It's a big deal. The one thing of Zach Ertz, he came back and he played with it. It's not like every lacerated kidney is the same, we'll see. I think it is a good indication that he'll be back this year. We don't know when though. And there is a drop off, Reed Blankenship played well, but there's a reason he was an undrafted guy and there's a reason he's on the bench. Right. So, I think there's going to be some growing pains there, but I think the drop off is less significant than I thought it was going into Sunday night, which is a good sign.
Yeah, it certainly was on Sunday night. I don't know if it's going to be long term, but Reed really played well. Obviously got caught bad angle with Christian Watson, but other than that, well, that kid can run. But other than that,
to see a 6'5" dude like that and then watch him burst away with 21 miles an hour, that's tough.
Yeah. Other than that, he played very well. And I'm a little bit surprised the Eagles pulled that trigger and went Reed over Kayvon Wallace, which really started a couple weeks ago. Are you surprised they finally said, you know what? Let's give Reed a chance in these dime packages. All of a sudden, that little shift may have helped him when they needed it.
Not super surprised. Maybe the timing a little surprising because I thought Kayvon had one of his best plays 3 weeks ago. He stopped, I forget who it was, short of the goal, short of the first down marker. It was a really nice play, but overall, he hasn't been playing very well, and he's kind of been a disappointment throughout his time here whenever he's gotten a chance on defense. So not surprised to see a guy like Reed Blankenship just work his way up the depth chart. The timing certainly worked out for him and maybe for the team too, that he got put in that dime role and clearly passed Kayvon on the depth chart. And now they're going to need him. The one thing that impressed me most about Reed on Sunday night was that he just played like he belonged. And you would think that a rookie, undrafted kid who's really playing his first defensive snaps in the NFL would be timid, and he wasn't. I mean, he was maybe a little too over aggressive, but that's fine. Like, you'll take that from a rookie. He was getting his nose in there. He was hitting hard. He's going to give them a physical element they might not have had with CJ, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah,
he gets hurt on his biggest hit of the year. But Reed's not afraid to stick his nose in on those rundowns, and we'll see how that can play out.
All right, Dave, two-part question. First, I need you to confirm or deny a rumor for me, and then need you to answer the second part of the question. A little birdie told me that Howie Roseman received either a call or an email from Dave Zangaro saying, hey, I can cover kicks. If Britt Covey can run back kicks, I can cover kicks. We're very similar players, similar sizes. Howie, you got to get me on the coverage teams because right now your coverage teams stink. Confirm or deny that communication between Dave Zangaro and Howie Roseman. And number two, if that didn't happen, what is Nick Sirianni going to do? He addressed it yesterday. He threw out some possibilities. Is he actually going to enact any of them this Sunday against the Titans?
The first part of that, I'm trying to think, if I started running, where would the kick returner meet me? I think like 10 yards in front of me is where we would finally meet. It's got to change. I mean, you can't. That was an atrocious performance, and it's one of those things where you win the game, but, I mean, that can cost you a game at some point. And they're now the second worst team in the league in kick return or opposing kick return averages. There have been 4 50-plus kick returns this year. There were 2 of them in the game against the Eagles. So not great. You know, you have to figure it out. I don't know what the answer is, but the answer is not running it back. I'll tell you that. I don't know what the exact issues were. It's tough for me to break down special teams. I don't know what's going on out there.
Well, either does Michael Clay, to be honest.
Got a goal, McMullen score.
No, we'll talk. Michael's very nice, man, and we'll talk to him today. But I do. Here's the indictment to me, Dave, and I mentioned this to Jody. If you're kicking off, and anybody other than Cordero Patterson is taking it out from 7 or more yards deep, they have no respect for you. They have no respect for you. I think that's got to be a wake-up call to Nick Sirianni, that the Packers even took that football out from that deep in the end zone. That is a clear sign of you can't cover a kick because people, we'll take the 25. Most teams are like 2 yards in the end zone, we'll take the 25. Not against the Eagles. Take that thing out.
Yeah, and I mean, the first kick of the game, the Eagles pinned them at their own 10, and they still had the confidence to run it out from, I think, -5 and -6 in this game. You're right. I mean, that's telling.
Yeah.
I don't know who the best options are. I don't. I mean, this team should not be this bad on special teams. They have some young athletic players who ought to be good, right? Like, Zach McPherson has been good. I think Kyron Johnson's been pretty good. Nakobe Dean should be good. Like, they have all these young players who should make this a decent, at least average special teams unit, and they've been below average. They've been the weakest of the 3 phases of the game, which, hey, if you had to pick one phase to be the weakest, this would be it. But, you worry that at one point in the season it's going to cost them a game, and they're about to play a team in the Titans that just mucks everything up and doesn't let teams break away from them. So, yeah, everything's a little tighter against playoff caliber teams, and it's something to worry about.
Dave, I'll use the word explanation rather than excuse here, because not this past week, but the week before, John gave A.J. Brown a bit of a pass on his fumble. I thought it was a really bad play. He tried to put a move on a guy rather than either sprinting by him and or dropping the shoulder pads and trying to drive through him. And he got the ball punched out on him. It was a good defensive play, but I thought AJ kind of brought it on himself. This week, at least, he was trying to run through a guy but he's supposed to be swole Batman. He's not supposed to be able to get the ball punched out on him. So 2 weeks in a row, he's had bad turnovers. What will be the explanation this week if we go 3 consecutive weeks of A.J. Brown fumbles?
It better not. I mean, it can't happen. Yeah, swole Batman's got to tuck that football with 2 hands. That's, you can be as swole as you want. If you're holding it with 1 arm, it's going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
Look, it's twofold here, because when AJ is fully healthy and he hasn't, been dealing with a stomach bug all week, he's pretty strong. He's pretty tough to take down. You want him at times fighting for those extra yards, but he's got to know to tuck that football, because now that's on tape too. Opposing teams are going to see that. They're going to say, all right, we get this guy in the middle of the field, hold him up. I'm coming in with that peanut punch. We're going to get the football out. He has to be aware of that. And I'm sure they're going to talk to him quite a bit about that this week. It's not like he's had a huge fumbling problem in his career. So I don't think this is like all of a sudden the sky is falling on A.J. Brown. He's just got to get it cleaned up.
I blame the signs in the NovaCare complex, Dave. That's when it all started. They put him up. They said it was just timing. Hey,
the good news is AJ and Quez aren't on that.
That's true. That's true. But I did think Zaire Franklin, that was a knockout punch. That was a perfect hit of the football. I didn't have a problem with that one. This week I had more of a problem, and maybe you can just chalk it up from AJ was really sick all week, and obviously to the point where he was vomiting so much he bursted a blood vessel in his eye. So that's how sick A.J. Brown was. So hopefully that's self-correcting.
Yeah. It was funny in the locker room, by the way. We're talking to him on Friday, and he was like joking around a little bit, like, you guys want to talk? I said, all right, that's fine, man. Like, I know you've been sick. He said, no, we'll talk. So I'm standing there, and there's a crowd around him now, and he's starting to say how sick he was. And I slowly start taking a step back.
Taking a step back, 2 steps back.
This.
Yeah, everybody's sick, man. It's crazy. But yeah, that's one of those things that sort of pop up during an NFL season. You never know when it's going to pop up, and you got to persevere. That, to me, is the most impressive thing about this team, Dave. Bottom line, we can talk about special teams. We have at times. We talk about the tackling. We have at times. Talk about the run support. We're going to talk a lot about that with Derrick Henry coming up. And they keep finding ways to win games. But this game is, styles make fights. That's the old adage. This is a team that I think has a style that could give the Eagles trouble. And it starts with that running game. And you saw it with A.J. Dillon, who's a big, powerful back, but he's not Derrick Henry. And the Eagles had a lot of problems with him. Jody and I have this discussion all the time. I don't think we're going to see this Eagles defense ever say, let's go load the box. Let's go load the box to stop the running game. They've made this sort of cost-benefit analysis. They want to limit as many explosive plays as possible on the back end. Now they have backups playing. Reed Blankenship, Josiah Scott. They're not going to show up Sunday and say, all right, let's put 8 people in the box to stop Derrick Henry. Are they?
Hard to imagine that. And the problem with that is you can do it. I mean, the Packers did it, right? We saw that a couple weeks ago. They sold out.
Cincinnati
to stop the run against Derrick Henry, and they did. Then Ryan Tannehill threw for 330 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns. And Derrick Henry threw for a touchdown because they were selling out so much against the run. So that was a big step for the Titans, actually, in that game to prove that, yeah, you go ahead, try it on us, try to stack the box. We can beat you in other ways. I agree with the Eagles just aren't going to do that all the way. I think there are certain things that they do. It's been so clear cut for me, this Eagles run defense. It's when they're in their 5-man, they can stop it. When they're in their 4, they can't.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's oversimplifying, but if you watch it, that's kind of what their issues have been. They don't have answers for it other than just having a nose tackle on the field. They haven't,
and is that, to me, is that like the question, Big Linval, strap up the elbow brace, you got to play 40 today.
Maybe.
That's the answer. That's it. It's 5-man front. They're okay. 4-man front. you might as well, get ready for the ride because Derrick Henry's taking you for one.
But when they go to the 5-man front, who comes off the field?
Normally, when they have the 5-man front, they have a 5-2 or 5-1. But if they're playing dime, Kaiser would be the only linebacker on the field. They do that very rarely, but typically it's going to be 5-2, and that's the difficulty in the give and take and why they don't like to. What Dave is saying is, on obvious passing downs, they want to play a 4-man front, and they want to get after the quarterback, and they want to play quarters coverage, and they want to, start and cover 2 and then spin off from there. And when they do that, they don't stop the run.
Yeah,
that's pretty much.
And the whole defense is really predicated on this idea, right? I mean, it's not a bad strategy. It's get in the known pass and let's attack. And you get sacks, you get turnovers, and that's the ideal way. The problem is and this is true. We talked about it a few weeks ago when they were giving up all those third downs. A lot of those were because they were getting into the third and manageable, the third and short. They were playing kind of behind the sticks a little bit defensively. That's a problem. It would help in this game if they get Jordan Davis back and they can rotate their nose tackles so that old Linval doesn't have to be out in the field for 70% of the snaps. That would help.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see Davis and Linval on the same front. That might make a difference.
Well, I don't know if they do that. I think they'd probably just rotate them.
Probably. But I'm saying against the Derrick Henry. You don't face Derrick Henry every week. So
true.
I'm saying, let's be honest. I mean, Fletcher and who Nick Sirianni said played one of his best games, Javon Hargrave. They're not great run defenders at this stage of the game. They're not comfortable with some of the odd man fronts, whether it's 4-eye, whether it's 5 that they have to play. They prefer to play 3 technique, prefer to go after the quarterback. And all of a sudden that they have to stop, and they call it 1.5 gaps, but whatever you want to call their run defense, they're not good at it. Jordan's good at it. Linval's good at it. And Ndamukong Suh, he didn't look very good at it to me at this point. It's interesting. It's something to throw in the mix. Do you think the Eagles are out of the box that way, though?
I mean, I think, before Jordan got hurt, I can only recall one time him playing in a 4-man front. Yeah. So it's hard for me to imagine him playing anywhere other than the nose when he comes back. Maybe Linval, but he just got here. So it's like, are you going to throw another position on him?
He can do it.
He can do it, but I don't think they're gonna make him. I think they'd rotate those guys before they played them next to each other. I get your point. I just don't think that they're gonna do that.
Dave Z, I want to jump over to the other side of the ball. From the time we found out after the loss against the Commanders that Dallas Goedert was going to the IR for at least 4 games, we started to speculate on what the Eagles would do to replace the production that they got from Dallas Goedert. Didn't quite do it in Indianapolis. Again, like John likes to point out, accurately so. And they won the game. We can sit here and second guess and point, the offense didn't do much. They won the game. This week, they put a whole bunch of points up, 40, and won the game. Is the answer just more running the football, more Jalen Hurts taking off with his legs and turning it upfield? Is that how they're going to replace the offense they lost when Dallas Goedert went to the IR?
I mean, maybe a little bit. I think the clearest answer to Goedert not being there is, to me, Quez Watkins, because you're going to have more 11 personnel. Those targets have to go somewhere. Dallas was getting around 6 targets a game. So not that it's all going to be that smooth and simple, but those targets got to go somewhere. And at first they go to A.J. Brown and they go to Devontae Smith, and what's left over can now go to Quez. I thought that Quez touchdown was the best sign for him all season, because it's a back shoulder throw that I can't really remember Quez being targeted on one of those before. That's a timing route. That's trust between the quarterback and receiver. I thought that was a good sign to see that. They're going to run a lot more 11 personnel. The problem with their multiple tight end packages at this point, without Goedert, they don't really have the threat to throw out of them like they did with Dallas on the field. So you don't want to become predictable. And when you're in 12 personnel, you're running the football. That's a good way to get clogged up pretty quick. And with these tight ends, I think they have some ability, but it's really raw ability. They're not Dallas Goedert. And honestly, I don't want to run the offense saying we got to get the ball to Jack Stoll. That's not the winning recipe there. So I think we even saw some 10 personnel, 4 wides from the Eagles on Sunday night. I don't think we'll see a ton of that, but that tells you the way things are. You go away from the tight ends without Dallas Goedert, and that's what they did.
Yeah, you say things can get mucked up pretty quickly, but I got to tell you, Dave, I don't know anybody who can muck up this running game. I mean, it was so
we'll
impressive.
See, this is a good test for him.
I know Jeffrey Simmons is one heck of a player. I'm going to go under 363 this week.
Nervy McMullen, you're getting jumpy, big guy.
Yeah, I'm going to go under, but I don't know if I'm going under 200. How? That obviously the answer to this question is everything. But if I asked you the Eagles' running game, what is the biggest key? Is it the offensive line? Is it the +1 of Jalen Hurts? I don't think anybody thinks it's Miles. Nothing against Miles, who's having a career year. But is it Jeff Stoutland? Is it the inventiveness of his coordination of the running game? What would you pick first and say, this is the foundation of it all?
Yeah, man. No knock on Miles.
He's last.
I want to get that out of the way first, though, because I want to give Miles credit because he's running harder.
Great season
than I've ever. He's running through contact this year, which is good because we haven't seen him do that a ton. But yeah, he's not the main key here. For me, man, those other 3 are very important and they're unique too. The +1 of Jalen Hurts, the offensive line. Look, I'll still go with the offensive line because those guys are so good and their athletic ability, especially Kelsey. I mean, you can almost argue like Kelsey's the same +1 as Hurts because, I mean, he is so quick to the next level. There aren't many guys that can do that. But Jalen just screws up the numbers for a defense so much. It's fun to watch defenses try to deal with it, and they can't. I mean, there's just no way to deal with it. It's the on-script stuff is bad enough. And then you have him scramble like we saw in that opening drive.
Yeah.
That's a backbreaker. But then if you ask all those players I just mentioned what the key is, I think they'll say Jeff Stoutland. And it's not just, we always say he's the offensive line coach, but his role as a run game coordinator is a big deal. His concepts and his attention to detail in that game, it makes a huge difference. So, man, I'd probably go O-line, Jalen, Stoutland if you're forcing me to pick, but I don't want to pick because I think they're all very, very close.
All right. If that question annoys you, this one will annoy you even more.
I'm going to start doing the chip thing. I don't do hypotheticals.
You know what I mean when I say RB1, the guy who's going to carry the football most for the team. And this year it will be Miles Sanders. 2023, the Eagles RB1 will be Miles Sanders, either Kenny Gainwell and or Boston Scott, a BBT back to be determined that they will get via the draft, or they bring in another veteran guy because there's a whole bunch of free agent backs this year. There are guys that are going to be paid even more than Miles Sanders is. He's not going to be the number 1 back in free agency this year. Who do you think the Eagles RB1 is going to be to start of the 2023 season?
Yeah, it's tough because I think Miles is a good player, and I think he's going to earn some money this offseason. I'm not convinced it's going to be with the Eagles. I think they have so many other free agents that I would prioritize over Miles. So I think there's a chance he could be back if the price is right. If he doesn't break the bank like he's hoping to, I think there's a chance he could be back. But I'm leaning toward finding a running back somewhere else. It might be time to draft another running back. That
Trey Sermon. Come on.
Oh, I didn't even put Trey in the mix.
Yeah.
I hear so much Trey Sermon from fans. We haven't seen much of him here, but there might be something there. I don't know.
Yeah. The inactives every week that I joke is the sermon from the book of Job. And then you go from there. But yeah, I'm with you. Now here's what could help the Eagles out, Dave. Josh Jacobs is a free agent. If you look at some of the proven running backs that are scheduled to be on the market, that big contract. I mean, people don't want to pay that position in the NFL. So if the Eagles can bring Miles back on a 2-year deal, team friendly,
what would it take? Like 2-year, $10 million?
Yeah, why not?
I would do that. It would need to be cost effective. It couldn't be, it couldn't be a crazy high price. But if they can get it done, yeah, I think they'd like to bring him back. I don't think it's going to be a priority.
No, that we agree on. But that's for down the road as we sit here at 10-1, and the number one seed is obviously the number one goal, and it's more important now than ever because the extra playoff team, there's only one bye instead of two. So if you get that first round bye, it's so important. The Eagles have the inside track. Minnesota, they've already beaten. Dallas is sitting there. I got to tell you, though, I look at the way Dallas is playing, Dave, and San Francisco specifically. Those are the two teams I would be most concerned about if I'm an Eagles fan. Do you agree with that?
San Francisco for sure. They're getting hot right now, and they're just super talented. So that team definitely stands out to me, and that they have for a while. Like you're watching them, you're looking at standings earlier in the year, you're going, "Oh, maybe they won't be able to figure this out." No, they've figured it out. They're a really good team. Dallas is good too. The nice thing there is you have a game on them already. You probably don't want to see a division team in the playoffs just because you play a team 3 times a year. Strange things can happen. And then look, I know they're not playing well. I know Tom Brady looks washed. I don't think you want to see Tom Brady in the playoffs. And I know that is silly maybe right now to watch them and to think that they're dangerous. Don't want to see that dude in the playoffs. You just don't. He has the ability to just flip a switch. And I know it's not just on him, but nah, you don't want that.
Dave, it's funny that you went there because I do remember here on Birds 365 on our stream, my WIP shows, I got a lot of give us Brady the week leading up to the playoffs last year. When you didn't know who the Eagles were going to play, you knew they were going to play the JV the last regular season. Oh, we can beat Brady. We can beat it. And I just kept shaking my head going, what the hell are you talking about? You want no part of Tom. He's Tom friggin' Brady. Don't you understand that?
I've declared him dead too many times. I won't do it again.
I'm with those guys this year. He is dead. And it's more so the Buccaneers than it is Tom Brady. That team's dead in the water. They stink.
Someone's got to win that division.
I'd take them over the Vikings and their marginal defense, but a whole lot of weapons on offense. I'd take the 49ers. I don't want to face the Cowboys. Shoot, I might even have more respect for the Giants than I do the Bucs right now.
Okay.
Not me. Not the Giants.
We got two chances to get a look at the Giants before we get to the Giants in the postseason. But I've watched a lot of Tampa this year. They're just not a good football team, and they're not nearly as well coached as the team that took the Eagles out last year and the team that won the Super Bowl the year before. It's not the same.
I agree with you. Just don't want to see them.
Yeah. No, I mean that. Yeah, there's certain teams. Yeah, I get what Dave's saying. I mean, Aaron Rodgers showed up this week, and I'm like, I say what you want. I don't want to see him. I thought it was funny that Gannon brought him up twice before anybody even mentioned him. I mean, that's how much respect Aaron Rodgers has, and you saw little clips of it. But I also agree with Jody in that Tampa Bay's washed as a whole. I don't think there's anything Tom can do. But when you start playing it, I mean, to me, the Eagles have been the most well-rounded team in the NFL this year. And we nitpick because we have to nitpick. I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. I'm kind of bored with this team. They go out and win every week. It's boring.
At least it's been more exciting the last couple of weeks. There was a while where it was like,
there
but
was a
they
little
didn't
bit of
score
a
much
lull.
in the second half, and they really had to milk that 21-point lead.
Yeah.
At least
and they had the lull. You know, it started in Houston. They didn't play great. That's a really bad team. Obviously, they lost to Washington. They didn't play well in Indianapolis. I don't even think they played that well against Green Bay. So there has been this bit of a lull. But boy, the quarterback has been steady. And it might be different each week, maybe a different way. We've talked about the MVP market, and this will be my last one for you. Make sure to follow Dave Zangaro, NBC NBC Sports Philadelphia. Does a tremendous job covering the Eagles. He's number 2 in the betting odds in most places. 2 is in the mix as well. Patrick Mahomes, fairly the prohibitive favorite. But if you went back and we were watching training camp every day, could you have ever imagined this would be the season that Jalen Hurts is having? I mean, it's been amazing.
Yeah, and it was, look, we all expected him to get better. I expected him to take a jump. I didn't see this kind of jump coming. Just the way he's grown as a passer in this offense. Yeah, it's something special we're watching. And it's not to say he doesn't have more room to grow, which is kind of exciting too. I don't think he's reached his ceiling. I don't. I still think, and he'll tell you this. He has left plays out there.
Yeah,
I think there have been moments, especially early in games. He'll be a little shaky to start games. I think like that's an area he can get better at. He's on the short list as an MVP favorite. You're right about Mahomes. Mahomes is probably the MVP, but Jalen is right there with them, and it only takes a couple game swing to really flip that.
Let me just say this though, Dave. You mentioned this isn't a ceiling. If this is a ceiling, this is fine, right? If this is it, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you still in the back of your mind, you still worry about, is this like sustainable long term? Because there are times where he needs to run the ball. He's going to smash the single season attempt record in terms of running quarterbacks, but he also doesn't take big shots. He's really smart for the most part. Like when he takes a shot, it's normally in the pocket. You think about he must be getting hit downfield. No, not really. I mean, he's sliding, he's getting out of bounds. Occasionally he'll fight for yard, but
to the boundary. Yep.
Yeah, the biggest hits he takes are in the pocket, and sometimes he'll get a little lax with his pocket awareness, and he'll take a big shot. But that happens to quarterbacks. So I'm not too worried about that. That's something like you look at the numbers and I should be worried about that, but I'm really not. He plays at this level. Yeah, he's gonna be good for a long time, and he's gonna get paid a lot of money.
All right, Dave, last one from me. On the record, I'm a big fan of both the Eagles defensive coordinator and their head coach, but their defense coordinator annoys me because of his lack of flexibility and never brings an extra defender, big defender, run defending defender on the field. So I get on his case for that every once in a while. The thing that gets on me, that bothers me the most about the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles is something that I don't think he'll show flexibility about either this Sunday. What's the worst part of the Philadelphia Eagles right now?
Special teams?
Special teams. Specifically, returns or coverage?
Well, after last game, coverage.
Coverage.
Could make an argument for both, though.
They're going to go out and flip a coin before the game starts, right? Let's say the Eagles win the coin toss, which they've won 9 out of 11 this year. If you're the head coach, do you not say, whoa, we don't want to have to cover to start the game. Let's put at least a better foot forward that we don't have them taking it out to the 50-yard line and have the crowd booing us on the first play of the game. Tell me Nick Sirianni's going to win the coin toss and say, give us the football.
No way.
No way. Yeah, no way. No way. And by the way, I don't even think that the kickoff return is necessarily better than the coverage. Although Boston's been a little bit better.
Some juice.
Yeah, he's been a little bit better. I'm surprised how long it took him to make that move. That to me is the bigger question. And since Jody's obsessed with coin tosses, so yes, I said last one. But first question to Michael Clay today, Dave. What are you asking about first?
What the heck happened? Yeah, I mean, what happened on kick coverage?
Yeah.
Good luck.
They gave up 2 50-yard returns, John. That doesn't happen. This is 2022. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right. McMullen doesn't have the answer. Zangaro doesn't answer. McDonald doesn't have the answer. Or I don't think Michael Clay's going to have the answer either. But you are exactly right. You must ask that question. We appreciate your answering our questions, Dave Zangaro. Always a pleasure when you come on with us. Thanks, bud.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
NBC Sports Philly's own Dave Zangaro here with us. 355. All right. Quickie timeout. Got to come back. You know what we got to do? Put a bow on the show.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted,
revered, appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate, honest,
and fair.
He is extremely dedicated,
motivated, and always seeking the truth.
He's also funny.
We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
McDonald and McMullen here with you on Birds 365. All right, we're running out of time. Coordinator Tuesday. Happy Tuesday for you, J-Mac. You got to check in with the Eagle coaches today. Do they come out in the same order every week, or do they move them around and juxtapose them? How does that work?
Normally, they come out in the same order, but there have been differences over time. But normally, Gannon goes first. Clay second, Shane Steichen third, which is interesting because usually JG is the main event, so you should probably go last, but it's got to do with the timing.
Gotcha. Can Michael Clay just hide today and not face you guys? Or you think?
No, I got to go today. Sometimes he hides. In short weeks, they only bring out the offensive defensive coordinator, but not a short week. So.
This would not be a show. Well, they didn't play till Sunday night. You could kind of fudge it and say it's a short week.
Yeah,
well,
Michael Clay, don't give him ideas, Jody.
He needs to be accountable today. All right, have a good time talking to the coordinators, and then you're stuck talking to me again. You in for tomorrow?
Yeah, hopefully this cough is not in, but hopefully I'll figure out the mute button tomorrow.
Game Day McMullen will be back with me tomorrow here on Birds 365 in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.